So, hello, Susan. Our idea for today really was to discuss, we are both practitioners. So the idea behind this was to see what we are doing for our own self-care at the moment during this period of lockdown. And are we actually walking our own talk? I was getting my words muddled on that one. So I think on that, Susan, first of all, I'd like to pose the question to you. What are you doing at this time for your self-care?
Right. Well, it's been a great opportunity for me to check in that that I am walking my talk and talking my walk. And
Well, that was brave. I didn't dare go back to
that. And you know what? Sense of humour. My goodness, we absolutely need to keep dipping into things that make us smile and lift our spirits. And so for me, a lot of my typical daily routines haven't changed. They have become more focused, more because I found a lot of people are looking towards us for guidance and how do we do this? And really the first thing I guess I checked in on was a timetable. I really needed to ensure, because it wasn't just me at my home. There's myself, my husband, and my youngest son.
Yes, that's the interesting, isn't it? How the dynamics have changed. We're three working here, and I struggle sometimes to not feel like the office cleaner, but never mind.
I think my husband would say that was his role.
Oh, excellent. I hadn't thought of that option.
Yeah, so this has been it's been more about looking at those dynamics and how they could potentially change what has been my routine of self-care.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there was definitely a period of easing into this, and where my son came home to roost, so to speak. He brought two large desktop computers, and for a week was beavering away, and then the following week he was furloughed.
Oh, right. That brings another set of problems, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, certainly different challenges for sure. But to say that my husband is also a home worker, so the two of us have sort of, we've had quite a strong period where we've had to adapt and adjust. But we've been doing this for quite a number of years. But then yes, to support our son in the transition, because he's just turning 21 actually next month.
Oh,
so
it's really quite difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, he's at that tender age and stage of really getting to grips with working life anyway,
and needing to be more social, I think, isn't it? It's
yes,
because
exactly.
however much you try on these Zoom calls and all the rest of it, it's not the same as being in contact with your friends. In fact, I was discussing it with my own daughter, who's just had a baby. I mean, baby's 6 weeks old. I can't get to it. It's really annoying. But anyway, I was describing to her how I have a Zoom call with my tennis friends on a Friday, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been great to see each other. But it leaves you, when the call's finished, there's that kind of slightly melancholy feel that it doesn't deliver in quite the same way. It's lovely to have the contact, but it's not quite the same as, a quick hug or a quick slap or whatever it is you normally do. That the physical contact is still quite important, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a biggie. And as we know in the Chrysalis Effect, being tactile and touch is a huge part of our healing, of our daily, way of being. So I guess we're very fortunate to at least be in a home place where there's at least some other people around us as well, where we can
very much so
get that. And
we've
my heart goes out.
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have a garden, and I've got a dog, so there's that thing about being able to ground yourself, which is so supportive for people if they're able to do that. I always suggest to people that they take their shoes and socks off and go in the gardens and just sit with a cup of coffee or whatever, just to ground, because it's so grounding. I can't think of a different word. It's very supportive. But again, discussing it with another practitioner recently, she was saying how on her walks she hugs a tree, and it's incredible actually. As long as nobody's watching, you don't feel totally foolish. It does give quite a sense of support and not being on your own. That's sort of hugging a tree. Yeah. But anyway, so
no, it's that I think it's a reality, because a tree is representative of so many valuable notions around nature and the cycles of the seasons, and it's something that we can always rely upon being there, and it's good for us to make that connection, that physical connection. So whether it's a tree, whether it's, as you say, taking your socks and shoes off and standing with your feet on the earth, there is definitely an energy there which is nurturing and revitalizing. So we could go into the science behind it, and if people are interested in that, there really is an amazing science which just proves the benefits of doing these things, which some people may say is woo-woo, but if it makes you feel a little better than how you were, then it's worthwhile.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter, does it? I suppose with the, I called it grounding, but actually I think maybe some people are more conversant with the word earthing, maybe, and then that immediately puts you into the science of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But I've got to share this with you. A very good friend of mine, she's a psychotherapist counsellor, and she has been sharing with her clients the cushion hug. So to just get a little cushion, and when you're doing these type of online meetings, where it's appropriate, obviously, but certainly you could do it with good friends and with family members, and both of you you can feel it, you can close your...
I love that idea.
Yes,
I've never heard of that. That's lovely.
Yes, yeah. So that's a lovely one to share, because my heart goes out to the people who are in flats, high-rise flats. I've got friends who are in that situation. Yeah. And that then becomes, there's another dilemma getting from flat, especially if they're right up there, down to the ground floor level and doing what we're talking about. So I acknowledge that there's lots of situations where so can't always do what we're talking about, and therefore we have to use our imagination in those situations where we absolutely cannot get outside, using the imagination to visualize something of that nature is as powerful and is as connecting as actually going and doing it, as you know, Brigitte. It all starts...
Just looking at your background, Susan, I mean, that in itself is very uplifting. It's lovely. It's beautiful flowers, etc. I'm outside in the summer house, which is why you can see the trees moving around and stuff. But when I can, with the weather having been so lovely, I'm out here. This is my office at the moment, so it's working out quite well.
Beautiful.
And the dog loves it too, so that's great.
Yes, I've had to close the door for that reason.
Yeah. How have things changed for you in this period? Well, I'm thinking clients, really, client work.
Well, client-wise, it's been quite a strange time, because I hadn't quite realised just how how the large percentage of my clients were actually face to face, and I hadn't made that connection consciously until suddenly I was no longer seeing them, and over 90% of my business was based on face to face, even though I thought I'd been building my online presence and doing more online coaching. It turned out that wasn't the reality.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because as you're saying, you thought it was already maybe 50-50, but it is interesting how you need sometimes to actually be put in a situation to actually see the reality of it.
Yeah. Yes. So if you'd have asked me that question a couple of months ago, when I was doing all my, future visioning and planning, what have you. So yes, it's.
But that transposes beautifully to online, doesn't it?
Say that again. I missed that.
It transposes beautifully doing that. I thought you only did that online. Well, no, not only online, but I thought that was mainly an online thing.
No. I've for the last 20 years or so, it's been very face to face, and I've got quite a number of different facets to my business, which I suppose is what culminates in well-being. So, as you well know, being a well-being coach, we use a number of potential modalities as we introduce those within our coaching sessions, and certainly that's very much been the case for me, using holistic therapies and even hairdressing.
Oh my goodness! I cut my I cut my son's hair on Saturday. He'd asked me if I would do it. Apparently, he gets it cut every 4 months. I can't believe that. Anyway,
4 months.
Yeah, I know, every 4 months. So when he asked me to cut
it, Are you still talking?
Actually.
Oh, well done.
I'm quite impressed with myself, because I got the clippers, and he first of all he asked me, would I mind? Did I feel confident enough? And I thought, well, I can't get away with this. So I thought, yeah, of course, no problem, Robert. So we bought some clippers. They arrived, and have you ever done this?
Oh yeah.
Have you? Oh God, well, it's as scary as hell for me. I got the clippers out and thought, oh no. And then his hair was really long. I've taken at least 2 inches off everything. And I started off at the back, which I don't know whether that's what you do or not, but I had a quick look on YouTube for an idea. And so I started that, and you get to the point of no return, isn't it, when you've taken one great strip off. And then, because I like him with longer hair, I tried to leave the top bit, sort of vaguely, a bit of top bit really, sort of at a Peaky Blinders, which went down an absolute treat. So that had to go. And then I've managed to leave a bit of a fringe he showed me. I'd actually asked our hairdresser recently, how he did fringes, and he said, oh, just a pair of scissors. And I said, oh, could you let me have some? Because I thought maybe he'd have a better deal on some really good ones. And he said, oh, just use nail scissors. Well, our nail scissors are bent. They're like sort of crescent shapes. So but anyway, I've managed it, and he looks great, and he's happy. But I tell you, talk about putting your trust in something, into a higher power or whatever. Anyway, it's all right.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, there you go. You see, Brigitte, you've
another skill,
another skill set.
But say hairdressing at the moment. Wow. So you are qualified as a hairdresser, are you?
Oh yes.
Oh.
44 years of hairdressing. Yes.
Well, with hindsight, I can see that is the most amazing skill to have now.
Yeah, it's been a saving grace over the years for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, I can well believe it.
Yeah, it's something that we all need, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
But it's my creative outlet, Brigitte. It's don't ask me to draw anything or paint anything. You'll get one of those weird, childlike, extraordinary, very hard to decipher what it is, but give me a head of hair, and I'm in my element, and just
wow.
eye for it, and so
Really? Oh, that's wonderful. Actually, talking of the creative side, the Chrysalis Effect around an art class last week.
Yes.
Rebecca Bush, who is the artist in residence, did an hour session, and I went on it actually. There was Kelly. There were quite a few, obviously, people who were recovering on it. Kelly, Elaine, and myself did it, and she was brilliant. Rebecca was brilliant. But the thing that I came away with, more than the resounding thing, was that it's actually the act of doing it that is the therapeutic thing, and the end product is neither here nor there, which is never, I've never seen it that way. And at the end, when she made us put them all out, I was busy looking at everybody else's. Oh, does this look okay in corresponding to everybody else's? And in fact, Rebecca she latched onto that and said, she used a word that every bit of me suddenly went, oh, don't like that word. She said, yes, being envious of other people's talents. And I thought, oh, I didn't see it that way at all. But it was quite interesting to get it thrown back. I felt it was thrown back in my face, in the sense, I'd never considered the word envious. So it is interesting that we're busy challenging ourselves all the time, aren't we?
Oh yes.
But the art class was brilliant.
I love the idea of that, and what struck me there with what you've just shared there is the fact that it was the journey that was important, and not the end result.
Absolutely.
One thing I have to say is that the end result in hairdressing has to be as important as the journey.
yes, I can imagine. Oh, yes.
Dear. Yeah.
That to me sounds like a real uphill struggle after my session with Robert. But anyway, it ended up well.
You'll have to send me a photograph.
Well, that was the only thing I sent. I'm a member of a WhatsApp group and somebody else had cut her son's hair the week before, so she'd done a photo, and I said, well, I'm not going to be able to get away with that, so I just sent a photo of the pile of hair on the ground. there was masses of it. But
saving it up just for that moment in time with his mum. He'll never forget that, Brigitte. What a lovely thing.
Yes, I'm sure he probably never will. But
and you know what? I think that's another important part of what I'm hearing a lot of, is that people are having experiences within their families that they would never have had otherwise, unless it was for this time that's being forced upon everyone. And I know there are certain situations people are in where it's not as rosy, and I understand that must be a terrible place to be. And however, I do think generally the silver lining is that there's a lot of relationships which are becoming even more deep and meaningful as a result of.
Although I mean, on the other side of that, as you say, obviously some people are in desperate situations with this, but it's also for those of us who are able to use that and sort of cement those relationships. It's also quite nice for those of us who maybe have been unsure about certain things, and it gives you more clarity as to what you actually do want when it's over, if it's ever over. I don't know. It just there was a survey I saw this morning. Apparently 9% of the population would go back to what they had before, to being normal, being exactly the same. So
did you say
only 9%. So and apparently there was a massive percentage, I think it was nearly half, were about being more appreciative of food, which I suppose it's back to that mindfulness, isn't it? Being mindful that it is not just a commodity, but it's a lifeline, isn't it?
Yes.
So I thought that was really quite interesting.
Yes, yeah, and it's highlighting that people are becoming more aware of what is truly important to them, what their priorities really are, because where incomes have been massively impacted, and not knowing when the next channel of money flowing into them is, then of course it really does, there's no room for spending outside of what would be the norm, and so as part of that process, it's helping us all to practice that mindfulness, and to be investing your time, energy and monies into what is truly important. So
So coming back to your business, I suppose you kind of answered the how has it changed. What do you think, are you going to change anything as to how you work, or I suppose it's just that, are you going to be changing anything, or is it just settled down very nicely, and how's that going?
Okay, I mentioned at the beginning about my perception of my own business was not accurate, and I think what it's helped me do is it's been imperative that I get my website at a level where it's interactive, that I've got programs, masterclasses, courses, that sort of thing available for my clients and others to access easily. And so I'd been working on it, but it still wasn't there in the form of a shop or resources or that sort of thing. So actually my time sitting behind the desk has been doubled, if not tripled, but still with that eye on ensuring I have 3 hours from the time I get up to before I come and sit in my office. That is my me time, and that can consist of meditation, walking the dogs, exercise of some sort, yoga, and preparing myself for the day, because I think that's the other thing that's important. Whilst in this situation, it's easy, it could have been easy for me to have just get up, just stay in my jimmies, or not really make any real effort, but actually making that effort is pleasing to me. I feel better for doing that. It's more pleasing to look in the mirror and seeing me looking like this, rather than without that effort. It's because that's not taking care of ourselves. So and there's it's not just about putting makeup on. For us to be radiating that energy of love, ultimately.
Yeah, it is ultimately love. Yeah.
We have to be being it, and that's part of the life balance, isn't it? This is what I beat my drum about, is to ensure that there is the me time, the downtime, call it whatever you will. It needs to be equal to the amount of time that you're doing this sort of thing.
It's interesting that, though, isn't it? Because it is what we say to our clients as well-being coaches, that is paramount. You have to look after yourself first, in the same way as in an aircraft, you put the oxygen mask on first, otherwise you can't help anybody else. So and that's, I suppose, what we portray, isn't it? That trust and that courage to just carry on, and that's what we need to be able to show. Yes, I was just thinking about you saying you have those 3 hours before you sort of set yourself down, and my initial reaction was, wow. And then of course I look at what I do, and I have easily 3 hours beforehand. But when you actually quantify it, yeah, it's really interesting that.
Yes,
Because at the
it is.
moment, and it's always non-negotiable for me, but I take my dog out virtually first thing. Um, and that's a lot of that is, and I go where I really don't see anyone. So, um, and that's where I do an awful lot of my thinking, and I don't plan the day ahead at that point. Normally that's already done, but certainly time for me, and to notice the birds, and the blackbirds are singing at the moment, which is just wonderful. But this morning, and again, we're always learning. This morning I was busy walking, and I'm doing a couple of courses, which I took one on since lockdown because I knew I could fit it in. And I have to say, it's a complete and utter headache. I had no idea it was going to be so difficult. It's a course on mycotherapy, which is the therapeutic use of mushrooms. And I've used these supplements from a company called Hairdresser for quite a while, and they are fantastic. But it's not one of these kind of courses where you dip in and out, because there's a test, there's an assessment each after every module, and it's one of those. It's not multiple choice. It's even worse than that, because you have to match up in many of the questions. You have to match up a statement to what it would apply to, but it's almost like a double negative. They've presented it in a way that it doesn't flow naturally. So it's a complete headache. Anyway, I shall be glad when it's over.
Wow. But you know, Brigitte, of course, the mushroom family is absolutely, well, in health terms, is known for its antiviral properties. So it's huge. It's what a great subject for you to be
Yeah, it is.
specialised.
Actually, on the topic of viruses, there was a really interesting email I got yesterday. I'm trying to think where it came from. Yeah, it came from Zephorium. They do fantastic sprays, aura sprays and stuff. But it was an interview they'd done of Brix Smith Start, who apparently still has gone back to singing in a band. Anyway, and in that interview of her, she was saying how we have all, up until recently, been talking about things going viral. You know, you post something and it goes viral, and this is a massively exciting thing. And look what we've done. This thing's gone viral. Anyway, and the other one was about 2020 vision, which is a really interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously it's the year 2020, and our vision is really changing. So I thought the use of those two expressions was really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I think the more people I've spoken to just recently, now we're at this stage, because as we're talking, we're about 4 weeks into this now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
There is definitely the feeling of gratitude that this has happened. I think a lot of us have been calling it in on some level. Oh my goodness, I just need this space to be able to get this done.
Yeah, yeah.
and I think collectively within the mass consciousness, because if you look at the bigger picture, we've all been driving ourselves, and there's been this huge momentum, this wave of energy where everybody has been full on flat out in the fast lane. There's been that sense, that feel, unless you're in some part of the world where there isn't technology. But where there's technology, there's definitely this sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And
you can't get away from it, can you?
Yeah. And I think that it's it's like nature itself, we are part of nature, and nature always brings back the balance wherever the imbalance may be occurring. Something happens in order to restore balance. And I really truly believe that whether we like what we're hearing, what we're seeing, and what's being presented to us or not, the case is that it is giving us all an opportunity to recalibrate. And
very much so.
yeah. So it's fascinating. But it's meta well-being. That's what I do and believe in, and it's how I live my life, by looking at that bigger picture, that there's always more to what may be being presented, maybe what we think we're experiencing. But by looking at going up and taking that bigger perspective, that viewpoint, that bird's eye viewpoint, we can see and notice things that we wouldn't have done otherwise, which helps to support us more, feel more validated, have more information and evidence as to the reality, the truth of the circumstances. So, yeah.
Well, Susan, I think we've done pretty well with this. Really enjoyed talking with you.
Me too, you, Brigitte. Thank you.
Yeah. So that thing of that we need to trust that it'll all be good in the end. But so it's been lovely, absolutely lovely speaking with you.
Thanks, Brigitte. That's brilliant. Thank you.